Okay, so I'm Jim Hague. I'm from the Open University. We've got Maria over there. I think many of you know more than you know me. So I'm actually a biophysicist. So I'm in a sort of slightly strange environment here, but bear with me. So my purpose here is to sort of tell you a bit about what cultivated meat is and why why it might be a useful thing to think about. So just to give an overview of my part of the talk here, I want to say something about emissions from protein sources. So you've got all these various different ways you can get protein. I'm then going to tell you what is cultivated meat, and then there are the two sort of ethical issues that I think relate more to this conference. Where do the cells come from? And what do the cell origins mean from a religious standpoint? I'm going to say on that second point, I'm not an expert, and I kind of want to crowdsource a bit. Because I think this will be helpful for me to understand it as we go forward and we start growing these things, what's kind of acceptable and where we can do things more usefully, perhaps. So this is a cut down version of a graph, and this is the only graph in the talk, I promise you, that Maria's going to show again later. But I've cut out anything that isn't a standard protein source. So what the graph shows you is how many carbon dioxide equivalent emissions are produced for every 100 grams of protein. So this isn't actually the weight of the food that you eat, but it's the protein weight of the food that you eat. So up at the top here are things like beef, right? Beef's a real problem because you've got a cow is basically a bioreactor that's trying to digest grass, and when it does that, it produces tons of methane, and it's you can't see the top there, but the emissions are high. All the way down at the other end are things like pulses and nuts. So you've got the other pulses and the peas. We've got 0.24 grams per kilograms, per 100 grams of protein. So you've got little emitted here from these vegetarian sources, and it would be great if everybody went vegetarian and vegan. But pragmatically, that isn't going to happen, right? People are going to still want to eat their meat, but there's all these terrible emissions up here. So the pragmatic thing to do is to start growing meat in a bioreactor. So these are some numbers from 2008. And you can see here that the emissions for lab-grown meat are kind of bang in the middle here for that point, but things are getting steadily more efficient. And the reason we know that there's potential for efficiency savings is because when you're growing cultivated meat, it's not kind of wandering around. You're not growing anything you don't want, like bones, right? That kind of thing, right? You're just growing the sort of meaty bit that you want. And the belief is that you can make it more sustainable, and you use sustainable energy sources, sustainable ways of growing the cells, and you can get things just a little bit better. I've missed things like potatoes and bananas out of this graph because they're not typical protein sources. So just to get onto here, what is cultivated meat? So I had a brilliant conversation earlier, and somebody said to me, "Oh, you're the guy that's going to talk about fake meat, right?" So I want to knock this on its head. This is not fake meat, right? So fake meat would be something like your soy burger or something like that, right? Something that's pretending to be meat. So what people are trying to grow is actual meat. So meat is essentially muscle. There are other things that you might eat out of an animal, like liver cells to make or liver to make pate, and some people are trying to grow these things. And the background here is some muscle. So you see these long cells here. I won't bore you with all the technical details, but these are essentially muscle cells. You've probably got a bit of fat in here. And then there's some cells that make things like collagen. So you've probably seen lots of beauty products that will tell you that you can plump up your skin with collagen. That collagen is something which gives tissues a kind of elasticity. So you've got cells, and you've got something that makes it elastic to give it structure. And ultimately, it should be possible to make a cultivated meat which is entirely indistinguishable from meat. It will be the same cells, the same things that give it structure, things like collagen, and it should taste the same. The only difference is that you're going to grow it in a bioreactor instead of in an animal, right? It should be exactly the same thing. So this all sounds great, and it is, but you've got to get the cells from somewhere, right? So one of the things that I've been learning about more as I'm actively researching in this area, we're starting to try and grow some of these muscle tissues, is where do you get the cells from? Okay, this is a big issue. So there's a company in California who for instance, who've taken a biopsy from I believe this pig here. I believe I got the right pig. I can't tell the difference between pigs; they all look the same to me. So they take a small biopsy. It's harmless, and then the pig kind of runs around the field. Pig's happy, and morally we feel happy, right? So this is one way of getting cells. It's difficult when you're doing research to get cells this way because there's all sorts of licensing issues with trying to get something like this. Another way you can get cells, if you've got a bird or a reptile, we don't tend to eat reptiles, but why not, right? Is you can take some cells from a fertilised egg. So early on in the stage, early on in the growth stage, you've got something called a pluripotent stem cell, which is there in the egg. Pluripotent means it can become anything. It can become any cell in the animal. And if you take some of these cells from a fertilised egg, you can then grow them on. And so you'll see that as these products become available, there are quite a lot of chickeny products. And one of the easy ways of getting the cells is from a fertilised chicken egg, so they can grow it on. And there's a third way. So my favourite way is biopsy. I think this is nice. You can see the animal running around the field. It is possible to get some cells from a slaughtered animal as well, and in some cases this may happen. I don't agree with this. I don't think this should happen, but it's something you can see. So it's where the cells come from is ethically important as a long-term vegetarian with maybe some vegan leanings. I care where my cells come from, so there's an ethical question there. Sorry, I just dumped this in. I probably should have put it earlier. One of the things we're doing at the Open University is we're using computational modelling to kind of try and understand how to grow the meat more efficiently to try and get to that very low carbon emissions, so how this seems to grow well, and also to get the texture right. So we use computers to do that. We use a bit of machine learning. I'm not going to open up the machine learning can of worms, but it's not general intelligence. It's not going to take anybody's jobs, so don't worry. And it's not going to take us over. But anyway, it's a little plug for the sorts of things that we're trying to do there. We want to make better products. We want to understand these things. But as we decide what we want to grow and what types of animal cells we want to use, we also want to. It's also, I think, important to take into account other considerations. Now, I put a big caveat here. This is not my area, right? This is your area, right? So I'm interested in what you have to say. But things that came to mind as I was sort of putting this together is, if you take your cells from a pig in a sanctuary or whatever, and you grow some meat from that, is it incompatible with Judaism and Islam or not? I don't know the answer to this. I think you probably need a religious leader to tell you this. But I'm guessing it would be. But is it? No animal got slaughtered. It's not really an animal, right, at that stage. But but the meat is kind of identical. If you take the cells from a fertilised egg, I think there are some religions that don't eat eggs. If you're a vegetarian Hindu, you're probably not eating eggs, right? If you're a Buddhist, you may not be eating eggs. If you follow Jain, you're not going to eat eggs. Or if you eat a cultivated beef from biopsy, and you've not harmed a cow, is that compatible with Hinduism or not? And I don't know the answers to these questions, so I want a bit of debate around this, because I think that will inform us as we choose which cells to use, how we can involve bigger groups of people and how we can cater for bigger groups of people. So that's essentially all I've got to say. Apart from, I will just stick in a plug for a couple of things. I published an article in The Conversation recently, and if you want to know more about the sort of origins of cultivated meat and how it links with other things around medical research, I think there's some interest there, and also an OU co-production, the Open University co-production, which is Rare Earth, which is a BBC Radio 4 series, and I was on a panel interview for that about a year ago, again talking about this kind of thing. So if there's more interest, then please follow those sources. Very simple conclusion here: cultivated meat might be useful for reducing carbon dioxide emissions. These are people who are involved in the computational modelling, but no, again, probably not doing anything in the religious sphere. So I can now pass over to Maria. I'm aware that I've probably spoken a little bit longer than I intended to, and I think Maria's
Thank you so much.
Take you somewhere else.
Brilliant. I think mine is this? No, that's not it. I can't see mine.
Is it in the skyline?
Inform. Is this it? Yeah, that's it. Sorry. Correct. Okay, so thank you so much, Jim. I just wanted to kind of think. I've been trying to kind of think of some sort of a hook or a story, to follow on from you. And the only thing that came to me was Star Trek. And those of you who are Star Trek fans might remember this episode where some aliens come on the Enterprise, and Captain Riker notices that they have animals with them, and he's like, hi. And he's like, well, but why bring animals? We have a replicator. We can just, replicate your steak. So now we prefer the animal. And he's like, we evolved humans. We don't understand this. What's happening? And actually, it turns out that they're using the knives or the weapons that they kill the animals with to kill each other. So it's a really interesting, I think, allegory of all these things that we've been hearing, about, the link with progressive, views and reform and so on. And I wanted to, the reason why I spoke to Jim, and I'm really interested in kind of including, cultivated meat in this research that I've been doing on kind of cultural dialogue on sustainable food, is because I think that, coming from Romania and doing some research there, I know that this would actually be quite important there. If you try to go at Christmas time and say that you're a vegan, and there is a vegan movement in Romania, they will, my family at least, will not be able to feed you. And so I've done some research there and UK, so Romania and UK, talking to people about sustainable food, and not necessarily kind of not only just veganism, and in a way just kind of I created a resource that looked at more than one type of sustainable food and kind of left room for reflection, right? So this is the context of this research was a very let's say arts-based project where people went on small pilgrimages, mini pilgrimages. The project was called 3 Connections, and it was about kind of going into nature and reflecting on issues of sustainable food through arts-based methods like drawings, paintings, transcripts of reflections. That's what I gathered, reflecting and kind of recording yourself. These are theology students from CPO who are doing one of these small pilgrimage at the Botanical Garden in Cluj. And they were actually on a small farm there as well. So why do this mini pilgrimage to reflect on sustainable food? This is what one of the resources looks like. So you can print it, you can adapt it, and you can kind of use all this information that's scientific, that kind of comes from various organizations and tries to showcase different opinions on this issue and the controversies around it, and kind of gives you time to reflect. And the reason why it's, I thought this was a good method is because this walking and arts-nature connection is a growing practice. Lots of academics are doing it as well, including in their methods. Pilgrimage is also part of many religious traditions. It's a tool for reflection and transformation. And of course, lots of influential philosophers have talked about the role of art in making us better humans. And in fact, this idea of imagination, using imagination is something that can, somehow really give us another, or provide another dimension of moral, cognition, which is kind of exciting, I think, when it comes to, new, new problems, new challenges. And this is just an opinion piece on the Green Christian website. I didn't find a lot on cultivated meat, but this is just something that kind of perhaps wanted me to discuss cultivated meat, because we are, I think, at a really important, let's say, stage when it's being introduced. And we know that there can be caution around food that is seen as being, kind of modifying something that's seen as sacred. And this is just an opinion piece. This is not, the kind of position of Green Christian on genetically modified food. But it talks about the fact that some Christians rejected genetically modified food because it kind of, let's say, conflicts with this idea of food's, sacredness. So my question, and this is the last thing I'll say, do we need a mini pilgrimage to reflect on cultivated meat? Do we, can we, is this a real opportunity to talk about sustainable and unsustainable food? And how can we best understand these cultural and religious responses to these many ethical issues that Jim talked about that are raised in response to this development? And of course, this is the graph that Jim showed you, but it includes other sources of protein, as bananas and rice and so on. But again, it kind of points to this distinction, or to this kind of implication that lab-grown meat can grow to become a very sustainable type of protein. So I'll finish here.
Great. Thank you very much, Maria.